You're listening to Lemon's Listening Library. Discover the story behind the stories with unique and raw conversations from the people who make your favorite books a reality. Thank you for joining this episode of Lemon's Listening Library. I'm your host, Randie Lemons, fantasy author, or RL Rose to those of you in the romance community, and I am joined today by my amazing guest and co-host, and I am super excited. I'm gonna keep messing these up. We're gonna keep this one because this is just how I roll. I want to introduce our amazing co-host today, Bree. Bree, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Bree. I stream on Twitch with my husband, and I'm pretty new to the writing world, kind of like dipping my toes in with Randie, and this is my second podcast. So I'm not new, but still pretty nervous. But yeah, no, I'm really excited. I'm really excited for this. I think it'll be nice.
And before we introduce our amazing guest, I'm going to give you guys just a little bit of suspense here. If you guys are interested in joining our Patreon, you can have your services announced on our podcast episodes or across our social media platforms. It's a great way to support the show and to get your services out there. So, the moment we've all been waiting for. Rhonda, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Absolutely. My name is Rhonda Linn. I'm an author and an entrepreneur from Michigan.
Yay, I think you are our first entrepreneur. I mean, all authors are essentially their own entrepreneurs, right? But you actually know that you're an entrepreneur. The rest of us have no idea that we're entrepreneurs. Alrighty, so kind of tell us a little bit about what got you into writing.
Absolutely. So I really always knew that I was supposed to be a writer from a really young age. And even so I went into high school and made these amazing connections that connected me with like a poet and professor at the college level. And so I don't know, I'm just, it's kind of like a natural introvert and really shy, but all of a sudden like shy little Rhonda was like going to open mic nights and like publishing poems. And it was like this wonderful, expansive experience. And then I got into a career that just, kind of like took all my bandwidth and my gas. And so I slowed down with that a lot. And then 4 years ago, when I started my business, I really tapped back into writing, and it's just been a beautiful journey.
So was it your professor that kind of pushed you into it, or what was it that kind of sparked that that enthusiasm?
I think I always had the enthusiasm for writing, but I had a teacher in high school who really encouraged me to write, particularly poetry. And then he connected me with his colleague at a local college that was also a poet. And so I got connected with them and started taking classes even when I was in high school, and like joined a writing group with faculty and staff members at the college. And, it was really cool because really they kind of like taught me to be a mystic in a way, and like how to see the world in just this expansive way, and how to kind of like take the hardships and the trials and like translate them into something like infinite and something beautiful through writing. And so that period of my life was just like a beautiful time of kind of doing something that I had loved to do for my whole life, but really getting some craft and some more guidance around.
I would love that. Like just mentorship with writing in general, that would be amazing. And just because, a lot of times authors just jump in, their first, book or two is just like, no one should ever see this. This is just, my practice run. It is me figuring out how to write. But then whenever you have like the people who've done it and they can kind of guide you, it kind of really rounds the edges of those rough first drafts.
That is so true. And I think, for me, like I'm someone that loves to work like in collaboration response to people. So like if I'm just sitting by myself trying to write, it's miserable, but like having folks to like share drafts with or share ideas with, it's expansive.
Actually, Randie, your whole Discord and your whole community has been like fantastic. Like before I came into this, I was like, oh, I'd never write a book. And then I think I messaged Randie a month ago and I was like, hey, I have a book idea. And like, it's literally just taken off like that. And it's just like, I see all of y'all writing. I see you, I see Ariel, I see Kathy, I see Jess. And like, no matter what any of y'all are going through, like all y'all can write. So I'm like, well, I can write too.
So yeah, you see our chaos behind the scenes, so you're like, oh, I know I can do it.
I can do it too. And it's just like, it really is nice to have that community and have that group of people, because like when you're trying to do things solo, it's just really easy to like fall off. You don't have anybody that has your back. It's just like, well, I stopped writing this and no one's going to ask you about it. No one's going to say anything. But when you have that community, you know, it's like, hey, how's that work coming along? How's your book coming along? Like you always have somebody that's looking out for you. And that's something that I've found with Randie's Discord and stuff. So it's been really nice.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like a beautiful space and so supportive. Like, it just really has like helped move things forward.
So, and I love that too, because my first book that I wrote, well, I was drafting one and I didn't actually publish it, but the first one that I published, I was writing it with a co-author, and the amazing experience that you get from them getting excited about something and then you getting excited about something, it's like this transferable energy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really tough. I mean, maybe some people can do this work in isolation, but it's just so much more fun to do it in community.
Do you find that like do you enjoy feedback from your writing, or do you just get excited about other people with their writing?
I mean, I think a little bit of both. I just love to work in response to things in general, and so like if I'm just like stuck on a page, sometimes I'll like look at a quote or what someone else has said or something like that, and it just like helps me generate so many ideas. And, always just value the feedback of other folks as well, or even just like solidarity in the journey, because like this work is not always easy. And so having people that can kind of relate to that and cheer you on through like the high moments and like the not so high ones as well.
Yeah, I think that that's always important too, is like we just knowing there's other people who are like in reading slumps too or writing slumps. It's like, oh, it's not because I'm lazy. It's not because I'm not driven. It's because this is kind of how writing works.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I'm someone that like I really try to lean into the seasons, and our culture just sets the bar like so high for what people should be able to achieve and what we should look like, and be youthful and be super productive all the time, and like that's just not the reality of it is. So like being able to connect with other folks that are like riding the waves is a beautiful experience and brings it back to life, brings it back to reality.
That's a great point though. And that's something that I've had a hard time experience or going through too, is like when I'm not writing and I'm not doing stuff, the shame that can come with it, right? Like there is the piece of like, okay, you can be doing this. We can force it. We know we can force it, but then when you listen to your body and you listen to like your mindset and stuff, and it's like, hey, I really need a break today. Is that okay? Like, can you give your body that grace to be like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And not making it wrong, right? Because sometimes it's like we need a break, but then you're beating yourself up the whole time that you're taking it. So it's not really
Yeah.
restful.
Yes. Do
Yeah,
you
it's
have any
learning
way
when to
that,
rest. Yeah.
yeah. Do you have any methods or any like, do you like listen to your body? Do you like check in or anything? How do you work through that?
Yeah, I think in particular, I think when I was working some of my past careers in education, and I was just like pushing like full throttle all the time for like decades. And so like when I started my business in particular, I really like thought hard about like what is it that I want my life to look like, and I got clear on what that was. And a big part of that was like just being aware of, how I felt, and how I was like manage my workload and all of those things. And so, I think all of that, goes into it is like being really clear, and then really trying to think about like how can I curate my schedule, like my responsibilities, like my boundaries in a way that like supports what's most important to me. And for me, that's been like a transformative piece of writing.
I love that you touched on a couple of things there. So the getting clear on your goals, like that's huge, right? Like we can have dreams and we can have aspirations, but if we're like, I want $100, and then there's 100 deer in your front yard, like you have to get very clear on like your dreams, right?
So true.
But I love that that was something that you sat down and you're like, okay, what do I want? Where do I see this going?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is it's like our culture wants us to be just like in full bloom all the time. And, we can't do that. And so by like getting clear as to like where am I going to put my time and energy, and, what things can like I kind of set aside as a sidebar and not beat myself up for not doing at a given time, just helps us channel energy into like what matters most to us.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to do. Like the getting clear on where you want to put your energy, because if we don't have that like list, right, our priority list or what we really want to focus on list, sometimes we just give our energy to things that just consumes it,
Yeah.
and then we're like, I'm not getting anything done, but you're doing stuff all day long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like stepping off the hamster wheel in a way to for like long enough to be like, what is it that I really want? And when I first started my business, I literally like I had this planner that had like a little check mark section. And so I listed out what was important to me, which for me was like reading, writing, like eating whole foods every day, like getting outside, like doing some kind of like yoga, breath work, like mindfulness practice. And I put that in there. And so, every day I would check off if I had like hit the things in those categories. And I knew, that it like if I wasn't doing, each of those things, at least like 3, 4 times a week, that like things were out of balance in a way that like maybe could work temporarily, but, just wasn't sustainable long term.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is so important to do. And I love that you brought that up. So that is a great topic, especially for anyone who feels like their life is chaos and they feel like they are doing stuff all day long, but they're not really moving towards their goals. I encourage you to make that list and to see where you're actually putting your energy, because sometimes we don't even realize that we are just dumping energy into stuff that doesn't serve us.
Also, like, I know I'm ADHD, and if I don't have a list, things just don't get done. So, like, even if it's things that I want to go do, like, I know every day that I go for a walk. Well, if I can check it off that list, and I get that little bit of the mentalness that said, hey, you get to check this off. You get to do this, and you get to do this. And then at the end of the day, your whole list is checked off, and you get to feel good about it. And so it's that little bit of dopamine response.
Yes,
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
agree with that.
Yep, the little reward systems, and that's great, Bree. That's another good thing is like give yourself small, achievable goals. Like have
Yes.
your big goal, but create
Mm-hmm.
little steps to get to that, because our body is so, or our mind is so trained for the little goals, for the little
Right.
achievables, and like what we don't realize is our mind when we go sit down on the couch, that's a goal for us. Like that's our not a goal. That is like an achievement for our minds. Like we're accomplishing something that our mind wants to do. Be lazy, relax. And so when we retrain our mind to have the goals of like, okay, we accomplished the walk, we accomplished the things that are our goals that move us towards what we want. You have to retrain your mind.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think it's almost like sometimes we set up those goals and then we don't achieve them and then we like beat ourselves up about it, right? Like, oh, like why can't I do this? But I think it's almost stepping into the lens of the observer, that it's not a problem with me, but it's like what's going on with kind of how I'm crafting my life or how I'm designing my schedule that's like not allowing me to achieve those, and just looking at it through a wider lens as opposed to
Yeah.
like it's my fault.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just breaking down the task into like more achievable, like into smaller sections. So like,
Mhm.
since my son, I can tell him to go clean the bathroom. He has no clue what that means. He's
Yeah.
going to be like, nope, that's overwhelming. Can't clean the bathroom. But if I write down, clean the toilet, wipe the counters down, clean the bathtub, mop the floors, then he has all of those things to check off. And then suddenly he's like, look at all this stuff that I just accomplished today. And I was like, yep. And at the beginning of the day, you looked at this and said, I can't clean the bathroom. So it's breaking it down to how it's looking at it at a way to break it down in a way that you can understand it.
It's so funny that we can give our kids the grace to do that, but as adults, it's like, no,
No,
go and achieve your
never.
dreams. Like that explains everything.
Achieve your dream tomorrow. Obviously, you've been slacking. Gosh.
Internal dialogue, ugh, hits me in my feels. Another thing, Rhonda, that you mentioned that I love is the setting boundaries. That is such an important thing that it's like, for one, it's not controlling anyone else. Like that is something I feel like a lot of people miss the mark on, is it's not controlling anyone else. It's just telling the world how you're going to respond if certain things happen in A,
Yes.
B, or C.
Yeah. Boundaries. One quote that I've like always loved is boundaries are for yourself. Like they're for yourself. You're telling people how you're gonna react whenever things happen. Now you're not setting boundaries for other people. You're setting them like it's your own goal. And that's something that I think people get confused. And they think that boundaries are for other people. You know, you're setting it and saying, hey, if you do this, and it's like, if you do this, you're going to have a response. And that's something that I always try to remember too, because boundaries are hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like that also we're just raised in a culture that like particularly for women, like that, kind of teaches us to be like yes people and to like
Yeah.
nurture everyone and to take care of everyone. And so, we just don't oftentimes have a lot of tools for how to do that. And so then it becomes our job to sort of figure out, what that looks like in a way that can really support our lives.
And without feeling shame for it too. Like
Yes.
it's like we can help people, but we have to fill our own cup first. Like we have to make sure that we are okay before we start. Because what I think happens a lot of times is when your cup is empty, you are just pouring kind of sludge into other people's cups. If you're trying to fill up your kids' cups or, your partners or just, the people around you. And that's not something that no one wants that. And so whenever you focus on your cup and you're filling it with nice and green and beautiful and things, when you are overflowing, you don't really put a lot of effort into filling other people's cups. It just kind of happens naturally.
Yeah, so true. And I think along those lines too that, sometimes people like are more than willing to like help us with different things. Like at least I have the tendency to like just want to do everything myself and take care of everything myself. And it's like I don't let other people have those opportunities. And so like the boundaries let other people know, how they want to participate or how they can support you in a way that just makes it all run better without, you trying to put on a superhero cape or whatever.
Yeah, like I know a lot of people think that boundaries are selfish, like, oh, you're selfish for doing that. But actually, it's proving that you care. You care about yourself and you care about others, that you're being mindful of what you're doing and how you're even, and like Randie said, how you're filling others' cups. Like, you can't just, whenever you're filling your own cup and it's overfilling, uh, it's just going to happen naturally. And when you're taking care of yourself, then you're releasing that positive energy back into everyone else. So
Now, Rhonda, did you ever experience like having to learn how to set boundaries with yourself?
Absolutely. And I think it's something that I still struggle with in many ways. But I had a coach once that said, that like, you have to learn to like be able to trust yourself. And by meeting the boundaries to yourself helps you do that. And I thought that was a really beautiful way to put it.
Yeah, yeah, because that turns it into like whenever I first said that, everyone's like, "Oh, negative, like boundaries with myself." But the way that you just said that, that turns it into such a positive of like when you do show up for yourself and you do have the boundaries with yourself, you learn that whenever you say you're going to do something, you do it. Whenever you say that you are going to take care of your mind, body, soul, like you're going to do it. And so that does build that trust within yourself like that. I love that you have mentors that you can just be like, this person told me this. So we've mentioned a couple times about your business. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So my past life was in education. I was a teacher in the public schools. I taught poetry workshops in the prison system on a volunteer basis and then worked in higher ed administration. And then about 4 years ago, when the pandemic hit, it was like a trifecta of things. So my staff at work kind of got cut. I had a close relative that got really sick. And then the pandemic hit, which added a whole other layer of my work. And I just realized, so like in June of 2020, I realized that like I could not go back to work that following fall. And so I started an online business. And I had always been, my whole life, I had been like really felt like icky about business because like I didn't want to work for unethical entrepreneurs or like giant companies. But then I crafted this business so that I serve like spiritual, holistic wellness, nature-based entrepreneurs. So it's people that are like ushering in a better world and a world that like I think we all need. And so for me, like that felt in alignment to be able to serve in that capacity. And so now I have a team. So we do copywriting, email marketing, executive virtual assistant services, systems and ops stuff, and then as well as support for writers in terms of crafting their books and then, formatting texts and design and all of that stuff.
It is amazing. That is such an umbrella of like, I'm gonna help other entrepreneurs. Because, right, like we mentioned earlier, authors are entrepreneurs, whether they want to be or not. Was there any sort of calling to that? Like something that was like, this is just something I feel I need to do?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I was really desperate to be able to leave my job so that I had the bandwidth to take my relative to appointments and just so that I could slow my life down. And then I also just was like deeply called to write, but I had no idea of what a career path to that looked like. And so it's been a transformative experience, to kind of figure out, yeah, that I can make a living. So I started kind of first writing for other entrepreneurs and then doing more of my own writing as a stepping stone. And to realize like, oh, I actually can make a living doing this thing that I've been called to do was just like mind blowing, because I had always been told like, oh, you'll never make money as a writer. Like that's a side gig, but like you're not going to pay your light bill with it or whatever my whole life. And so seeing that actually wasn't true was amazing.
Yeah. And so did you kind of happen across your coworkers and the clients and stuff like that based off energy, or how did you go about finding your team?
So I started my business. I did like I saw a webinar from a woman named Lauren Golden in the Free Mama movement, which I don't have kids of my own, so it was interesting that I chose that. But she kind of teaches you step by step. But she was really good, like, and I knew that, right? I binge watched like all her YouTube content, and she showed you like step by step how to set up a virtual assistant business. And so like I followed like exactly what she said. And so I started my business in June. I replaced my income at my job during the month of June. I put in my notice in July, and then my last day of work was in August. So I got it up and running pretty quickly, and I was doing it on my own for a little while. And then eventually, did most of the marketing and connecting with people on social media. And then eventually, like, I got to the point where I couldn't do it on my own. And so I slowly started bringing in team members from there and, continued to grow.
Love that. That is, so you were essentially working two jobs for a little bit, right? Before you were like, okay, I'm gonna leave this one and start this one. Did you feel like you needed the income replacement before you walked away?
I mean, I did personally, like just for my nervous system. And I did like my job was in education. So I was still working that summer, but it was like a little bit lighter. So yeah, I was doing both, but it was definitely, it happened quickly. And I honestly feel like I don't think that that's like a usual thing for many people to be able to start a business and like replace their income
Yeah.
that quickly. But for me, like I felt like the rails were set for me. And I mean, my degrees are in English and in writing, so I had this, a lot of the skills to do it. But I just felt like it happened fast because that's what I was, supposed to be doing, and it was like miraculous, and I'm so grateful.
I fully believe in, if it's meant to be, it'll happen.
Sure.
So when you start, kind of tell us a little bit about like when people come to you with your company, what are some of the things that you guys do for them? I know you mentioned, some stuff, but like I'm looking at your site. What are the options that we have, and how do you walk a customer through your process?
Yeah, so I start by having like just a call with them to kind of talk about their needs and what they're looking for, and if it's a good fit, we'll work with them, and if not, I'll refer them to someone else that might be better. And then if they decide they want to work with me, we set up like a 90-minute onboarding call that's kind of a deep dive into their business and what they're doing and what they're looking for. And then, we kind of create a customized game plan for them. So for some people, they need help like writing their social media copy, or I'm working on like a big systems build right now where this person has a really big team, but everything's not set up in terms of processes and SOPs and things like that. And so we kind of like help them look at the whole picture of their business, and everything that I do is really designed to help entrepreneurs like step into having their business fully support their lives. So we're doing this all through like the mindset of ease, and how can we, just make things really supportive and make them run really well so that you can, live out your life's purpose. And so we provide all kinds of different support just depending on what people need.
I like that. You are a dream builder, essentially. You're like, show me your dream, let's talk about it, and here's the paths that I can help you take.
Yeah, absolutely. People have told me that like I do a nice job because I'm intuitive too. And so, I try to craft stuff not to like a one size fits all system, but really thinking about like how do we like really develop this in a beautiful way so that it is alignment with how you think and how you like to work and just in a way that your business doesn't feel overwhelming for me. And so that's the overarching goal, like with all of the clients, just to, be that extra set of hands to do some of the tasks, but also really help their businesses just run more smoothly.
What is the name of your business and how can someone find that if they're interested in that?
Yeah, so it's called Rhonda Linn Virtual Solution. I'm sorry, the business is called Rhonda Linn Virtual Solutions. My brain is working faster. And then
Yeah, you're good.
it's just my name, Rhonda Linn, LINN.com is
That's
the website.
awesome. My dog is dreaming. Hey, you're being a little loud, dude. So what is the difference between you're also doing another thing, your Substack, correct? So kind of tell us about what the Substack is and how it's different from these other things that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just as context, I was doing all this writing for clients and all this work for clients, but then still feeling like very called to do my own writing. And then my dear friend and, fellow poet and fellow writer died last fall. And as she was dying, she published a book of poems. And it like inspired me to not wait that long. And so that was what was the impetus to like start this Substack publication, which is called Earthen Jar Stars. And it's really about how can we be cradled by the seasons through the soaring moments and the muck of our daily lives. And so I started that in November and, have been growing that as well. And then the support of that community, which is just like a community of shining souls. It's a beautiful space. Um, that kind of gave me the confidence to be able to move forward with writing my first book, which was a gift.
So for our listeners or for anyone who doesn't know what Substack is, can you kind of tell us about what that is and how that works?
Yeah, so Substack is like a gorgeous community for writers where you can publish, essentially like a blog. People can sign up for that. So there can be folks that sign up, as free subscribers, or you can offer paid options as well. So, like for my own, I do like 2 posts to paid subscribers a month. And then eventually I'm going to build that out to be a little bit more here as we approach the first year anniversary. And then, we'll send occasional posts to the new subscribers as well. But it's a platform that was designed to kind of support journalists as they were losing their positions a few years back. And so it really prioritizes good writing. It has a really nice way of like connecting you with readers who might like your writing. And it's like a beautiful space and one that I'm like so grateful, to be on.
I love learning about these.
Go ahead, Bree.
Sorry. I love learning about all these new like websites like that because when we were kids there was all these like blog spaces and journaling outlets that we had and a lot of those just kind of upped and disappeared and a lot of them like probably weren't super safe anyway, so it's probably a good thing. So I don't know, I love learning about Substacks and even like Patreons. I've seen a lot of people have a lot of luck with them using video content and being able to publish their blog posts and stuff. So it's really nice that these are kind of coming back and giving people an outlet because writing is so healing.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's cool too. It's like relatively easy to use. And, I don't have like a million subscribers on there or anything, but this summer, like I paid my mortgage with the support of the people from the Substack, which is just like,
like
for
that
so
just always feels
like,
so
yeah,
nice. Yeah, like we stream on Twitch and we don't make a lot of money on it. We don't ever ask anybody to give us subs. We never ask anybody to give us money. And anybody who does, they do it out of the kindness of their heart. And every time we get a payout, I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like, especially having been told, like, you'll never make like living from this, you'll never make money from this, but like it's possible. It's a beautiful thing.
Now it is kind of like a compounding thing, right? It's not like you go out, especially, if you don't hit a big book right away or make, a best-selling book, it's not just writing. Like there are other facets that you have to use, like you're using multiple things. So you're using your business that you're using as an income, you're using the Substacks, and then you're also writing as well. And so that's one thing that, if you are interested in writing and you want to make a career of it, writing is great. Like I hope everyone can eventually just write. But if you want to make your career in writing, finding those other subsets underneath it that you can kind of make money from in different areas is great too.
Absolutely. Well, and publishers really want to see an author, at least now. I don't think it used to be this way 20 years ago, but they want to see an author that has, social media or, like a following on Substack that's going to make that book easier to sell. And so some of these things as like an intermediary step, to the book publications can make a lot of sense and just complement them as well.
Yes, yes. And finding something like there are, if you enjoy writing and you enjoy the craft like you did, you connecting with other writers and connecting with other people who have the same passion as you, that just kind of creates this circle of like you inspire them, they inspire you. And so getting into this world however you can to make the money and then moving on to, getting your book published by having the following and everything, that comes later. But setting it up the way that you do, or it can come later, it's different for everybody. But setting it up the way that you did is so smart because you are setting it up to pay out in the end.
And I will say too that like when I first started, I was terrified to share my words with anyone. I think I was just like kind of energetically blocked from having, worked in this really sort of high powered career for a long time. And so I started with a tiny Facebook group. And I just would share my writing in there. I did that for like a couple years maybe, and I still have that group. It's a beautiful group. It's called gosh, I can't, what is it called now? It's like the name, it's called Homespun Joy, a wellness collaborative. It's
Now, I was
gorgeous.
convinced you were not even going to share it because now you're just gatekeeping all the awesomeness.
No, no, no. But I'm just saying that like I started there and did that to like get comfortable sharing my voice. And then eventually I started doing it on my social media platform and then on the Substack, right? And now the book. And so like I think if I had like just jumped right to the book, that my nervous system like couldn't have even handled that. But like thinking about like what are those little baby steps that like can help me?
Yeah, you were naturally just looking for those baby steps.
I mean, and that goes back to like what we were talking about in the beginning, it's writing it down, it's making your goals achievable in small baby steps.
Yeah. So and this is something that I love talking about, is that you feel like you are connected through, you mentioned earlier the seasons and how that, there are certain seasons and then it makes sense and you just kind of go work through them. Tell us how you feel about that and how your process is with that.
Yeah, so I live on a 36-acre property that I've been like slowly over the last 11 years kind of changing into a food forest. And so I'm just like deeply rooted in the land. Like my house is literally made from bricks that were fired right on site. I'm like an earth person through and through, right? And so that's like always been a part of my life, but I feel like particularly like as I was, just trying to be more gentle with myself and trying to be more clear about what I wanted, like looking at the seasons gave me a beautiful lens to do that. So for example, this time of year, right, the tomatoes in the garden are like coming out full force, but at the same time, like the vines are dying, right? Because they're annuals and it's getting to be the end of the season, right? And so our culture asks us to be like perfect and shining all the time. But like when you look at things in nature, right, they're not. They're like half dead and producing vibrantly at the same time. Or right in the winter, the trees drop their leaves and like they get deep nourishment from the roots. And so looking at that as a lens for my own life so that I wouldn't beat myself up when I needed to take a break was just something that transformed my life.
I love what you just said there. Half dead and producing vibrant fruit at the same time. I had to write that down. That is, yes. And I feel like a lot of times we are trying to get away from nature, right? Like we are trying so hard to be perfect. Even whenever it comes to food, they want it to be shiny and waxy, and like you can't have any that have a little bit of yellow on it. It's got to be this perfect presentation, and it's actually diminishing the quality and the vitamins and everything that you're getting from the fruit and the intended purpose of the food. And I feel like that can compare with how we're trying to treat ourselves as well.
Yeah, it's such an unfair expectation. And so figuring out like how we personally can adjust our lens just to be kinder to ourselves, I think is transformative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
one
really
thing
like
that
that.
yeah. One thing that we try to do in our house is like we talk about failures like they're a good thing. We talk about,
Mhm.
mistakes like they're a learning thing. And it hurts. Yes, we can feel those emotions. We can be sad, we can be upset, but what did you learn from that? What can you take away from this moment? And I think that us shifting into that mindset has really made it to where we get more excited about failure. Like especially whenever I get like highly emotional, when I get angry, when I get super sad, I'm like, where is this pointing me to? Where can I go and find what this is that's either got me hung up in the past, or where is the sadness coming from? And it's like a roadmap on areas for me to improve on and work on, or sometimes just be in those emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think about the Nelson Mandela quote that's like, I forgot exactly how it goes, but it's like, I don't lose, I either win or learn. Like, what a
Yes.
beautiful way.
Yep. So with your season mindset, tell us how that transfers into like your life.
I think it's just helped me to be able to like slow my inner critic down and, just be kinder to myself. And in doing that, it opened up the space for me to be able to like achieve things that I kind of don't think I ever would have if I was just constantly like on the treadmill.
Yeah. And I think it kind of compares, like you said, to, your corporate job, and then, or your other job, and then coming into this, it's like, that's the treadmill. Now, how do we just walk normal? Yeah, I like that. So when you went into writing, is that something that do you already have a book published, or are you in the process of it, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so I have a book. It actually is came out today, which I've only
Oh.
announced to the Substack list, so you are the first to know.
That is
Um,
awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay, and now I kind of want to create a clip from this moment right now today so we can publish this as a teaser for this episode.
that'd be good. Maybe tomorrow if it's possible, just because I haven't even announced on social media
I
yet.
will send it to you and you can post it however you want to.
That would be lovely. Thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited about it because it was some poems that I've been working on for a long time, as well as some new ones that I just like wasn't ready to share. And like being able to do that has been a gift.
Tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so it's a book. It's called The Chapel of Small Breath, and it's poems. And it's really about a book about grief. It's in three parts. So the first part is about a relationship, and the second part is about the relationship dissolving, and then the third part is about this journey to renewal while you're also still sort of drowning in darkness. And I don't know, I try to tell it in a way that like shows like the holy that's stitched right through all of those steps.
What was there any sort of driving factor? I mean, obviously, grief is something everyone kind of goes through, so that makes sense that, that's something that you want to talk about. But was there a specific driving factor for you to write this?
I mean, I think it was just something that had happened a long time ago, that the writing was really a healing process for me. And, just like making sense of that. And I think like coming back to what we were chatting about a second ago with, that our culture like wants us to be like great at all times, but kind of helping to sort through the complexity of, who I am and what my feelings are. And that can be something beautiful as well, even, if we're totally messed up at the same time.
Now, it's a nonfiction book, correct?
It's a book of poems. Yeah.
Poems. Oh, that is awesome. I love poem books. Um, they're all just from you, correct? Gotcha. Okay. I love that. I started looking into poems, and I had no idea that whenever you do it with other people, it's called something different than when you just do it by yourself. And so I was interested in that.
Yeah, no, these are mine. I had a lot of support in terms of crafting the collection. So that was wonderful and something that happened pretty quickly. Like, so I started the Substack in November and then, really worked on this book. And by the spring, I had an opportunity of like a state poet laureate who helped me to kind of craft these. And she gave me really good publishing advice. So it all happened pretty quickly.
Now, are you self-published with it?
No, I published with Bell Publishing House, which is a press. It's a smaller press that kind of focuses on like embodied change makers with folks that, are nature based as well.
How did you come across them?
I was just searching and then through the advice of this poet laureate that I was working with to craft the collection. So it was a great experience working with them, and yeah, it's been a learning process through the whole thing. It all took a little bit longer than I thought, but then when I think about it, that really I just started writing a lot of these like in November and December of this year, and it's already out. Maybe it is more quick than usual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
So it is there was an experience that you kind of went through with illness. Is that reflected in the book, or is that inspired, or was that your illness inspiring to, or not the book, I'm sorry, your poems?
Yeah, so the book is not necessarily about that, but so this last winter I got really sick and they don't even know what was going on. I had like $1 million worth of, not a million, thousands of dollars worth of lab testing done, and like they just didn't know, but I was like laid out. And I think that what it was is like I was so busy in my business, but I was like being called to write, that it was like a redirection. And so I just had to like move through that and slow down. I mean, I wrote, I did my client work, and I, like slept like the bare minimum, for months and months. But that period was like this beautiful cocoon that then let me kind of shift things in my business and like publish this book. And so it was all a portal to like this next chapter of my life, even though it was like really yucky at the time.
So you look at that illness as a gift.
Absolutely. I mean, it was
That's
like not
amazing.
fun at the time. Like I was miserable and thought I was going to die, honestly. But, I can see, I look at it. So like a caterpillar, right, has what are called like imaginal cells in it. And those are like the cells that they'll use to start like growing wings when it's time for them to transform into a butterfly. And the caterpillar's immune system like fights off those cells for as long as it possibly can, until like finally like it just can't keep up and it becomes a cocoon, and it literally dissolves into like a puddle of goo in the cocoon before it transforms. And so I see these periods of like grief and illness or different things like that, that if we can like lean into those and not make them wrong and not beat ourselves up for not being, productive, that's like the gateway to the next chapter.
Wow. Wow. I had no idea. And so essentially, whenever we are blocking ourselves from the icky feelings and the uncomfortable feelings and the time where we need to rest, it's like we are essentially blocking our transformation into a butterfly.
Yeah, I mean that's the way it's been like over and over again in my own life.
Yeah. That is something, and Bree, you can attest to this too, is like getting to the point where you are comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like that is a whole other topic on its own.
Yeah, you have to. That's something I've learned in my whole growth in general is you have to be comfortable with uncomfortable. Like you have to be. I mean, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's something that it's not fun, right? Like it's something that
not
it's
fun.
not enjoyable, but it is so necessary a lot of times. Like going back to me being excited about whenever I get angry about stuff, like that's not fun. I don't like being angry. I don't like how it affects me, and I don't like, but I get excited because I'm like, where is this pointing me to? What is this showing me? And
What am I
then,
gonna learn from this?
yes, yes.
Yeah,
And I think that that's huge, and I love the way that you describe that because no one would look at that and be like, the caterpillar, from the caterpillar's mindset, it's like, it's my body's shutting down. I'm dying. Like, it's probably scared, it's worried, but then it moves through that process, and the change is literally transformational. I love that, Rhonda. That is really cool. I think
Yeah,
that that's going to be your sticker.
that was a good little analogy there that I'd never even, you don't really think about that. You're just like, oh, the caterpillar just buries down for a week and goes to sleep. Like, that's the like little bit of it, but it's what's happening on the inside that you're not thinking about.
Yeah, I was like, blew my mind when I learned that, because it's just wild. And I think it's like a great metaphor for, creative living.
Yeah. So what was it? Was there something specific that kind of drew you towards the grief topic?
I mean, I think that, that our culture just doesn't give us like a great roadmap for navigating that, or they, sort of like expect people to be like 100% even as they're navigating that. And so it really was like through this whole idea of like, how can I give myself a kinder lens for these really yucky moments of my life?
Do you feel like that comes at all from like your teacher side of things? Because I imagine, in a teacher setting, a lot of times I imagine you probably have a front row view of seeing either kids, or I don't know, whatever your student base was, humans working through grief, but then the system being like, okay, well, that's not the time, this isn't the place, you've got to get the work done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think like that in my own experience in education, that I saw like how people and systems and processes could, help to, just be generous and to put accommodations into place, or whether they were like formal or informal, right, to help people move through those processes. And that's a really beautiful thing. And not every system is like that. But I almost see that as like, just like a really nice way that we can come into our own lives, and be like, okay, what do I need today that's like different than yesterday or 10 years ago? And just meet ourselves where we are. There's
That's
a
fair.
beautiful quote. So I always think about the two quotes. So Guru Singh from Kundalini says, "Do your best and be happy with it." And then Don Miguel Ruiz in the Four Agreements says, "Your best is changing all the time." And so I think about those two things together, and it gives me like so much peace.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that you said combining those two together, because separately, they have, it's kind of like the yin and yang thing. Separately, they can kind of have their own barriers and blockers, but using them together, it really does kind of push you forward. I like that. So you are transforming, you said 46 acres?
36.
36 acres. And yeah, that is a feat completely on its own.
It's kind of
What
cool.
was No, you're fine. What was your driving factor for doing that?
So this is like another breadcrumb thing that I started. I knew that I wanted to like have my hands in the dirt. And so when I lived in the city down in Ann Arbor, I got this little like 5x5 garden plot. And I loved it so much. Right. And then, I was talking to the other gardeners and learning and like eating all this food, and it was fantastic. And the next year I got like a 10x10 plot. And then, when I got to the point that I decided I wanted to buy land, I was looking for, some bigger land. And so, then I just started with a little garden here, and then started putting in like fruit trees and nut trees. And, it's just been something that's like I just didn't necessarily like plan to do, but, just incrementally over time, over like the last 11 years, have been planting like thousands of perennial fruit trees and bushes.
It's so awesome.
Wow.
Like, I have my little bitty I have my little 2 tomato bushes, I have my herb garden, and I have my jalapenos. And now I have 20 jalapenos I don't even know what to do with, because I don't even like jalapenos. But it's like, I'm gonna use them, I'm gonna eat them, because I grew them with my own hands, and that's so freaking cool. And it's so
Oh wow. I can't even imagine 46 acres. Like, I live on 5 acres and I feel like this is big, right? Like
yeah.
46 or 36, I'm sorry. I keep saying 46 for some reason. That I would love that though. Just like being able to have this space that is, cultivated by you, but also by nature, like, and you allowing either you to have your hand in it, or just letting nature do its thing.
Absolutely. I think when I first came here, like I wanted it to look like a house in town. And it was like a process of realizing, like, no, no, like this land, like a good chunk of it really needs to be wild. And so, like, I do things like yesterday, I was like out by the river picking up acorns, that I'll plant to be able to plant little oak or grow little oak trees and transplant them out and things like that. And so it's certainly like not all cultivated and it's a work in progress, but it's been fun.
Yeah, that is literally like the definition of, you put your touch on it, but then working alongside nature.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
like that in
exactly.
general, like in terms of what you just said, like you have to cultivate it, but it's a work in progress. It's like we are. You have to cultivate and you have to water yourself. And we are a work in progress. And if you don't put the work in, it's not going to grow. So I like that.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of our mindsets and our bodies, like just like you're saying, like we do have to listen to the seasons. We do have to listen that, okay,
Yeah.
maybe we do need that extra nap today, and that's okay.
Yeah. I always think about there's a Louise Gluck poem where she basically says, if you miss a day, don't worry, the plants are still going to come up, the seasons are still going to go on. And I have thought about that a lot because, like, when I first got here, I was like a monomaniac, like trying to get this land in order. And it was honestly like way too much. And then this last year when I was really sick, I just couldn't like do anything. And so I had to like let things go. And so, just like coming to peace with the fact that, like, you know, when we're operating in a seasonal way, like we can roll with it and then, we can come back and do things later. And, that it's not like a personal failing to ride out the seasons.
Yeah. Yeah, something we do here, and it's really hard for my husband because like he's from the city and he's from, manicured lawns, but something we do is we don't cut our grass until the first wildflowers bloom. And so it gets just big and tall and just kind of everywhere, and then all the wildflowers will bloom in the spring, and then we will cut it all down after a little while of it being up. And so it's that process of like coming home and the house looks overgrown and everything looks like it's in disarray, and it's okay. It'll be okay. It's not going to hurt anything. When we cut it down, it's still going to all look pretty and manicured.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a deconditioning process because I do something similar too. That, you know what I mean? If you grew up with things looking a certain way, you sort of like that's where you're comfortable. And you have to decondition your mind. And that's like true for, like a gardening or like an overgrown lawn, but, so many of these other facets that we're talking about as well.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. And then just like it's overgrown and it looks bad, but then when all the flowers bloom,
Yeah.
I love going out there and taking pictures of them and having my kids in the pictures, and it's like
Yeah.
it looks gross for a little while, but then the prosper happens and the beautiful happens, and then all the bees come and all the butterflies, and we can't just cut it all down while it's ugly, because then you never get to the pretty part.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way to say it.
Sometimes I impress myself. I'm like, oh, that was really intelligent. Doesn't happen all the time. I will mess up somewhere where you're like, oh yeah, you're still human.
Welcome to the human race, right? Everyone.
So you and you can totally tell that, the way that you live your life connected with the gardening and things, it influences your lifestyle. And how does it influence your storytelling?
I mean, I write all the time about nature, right? And how to connect like nature to like be mirroring, human emotions or different things that I'm going through. So I think it like permeates every aspect of it, really.
Um, so do you feel like connecting, so I feel like nature is more grounding, right? It's connecting ground and physical and things, but how do you do other areas? Because I'm sure that you understand, like there's a balance with other areas like mindset, spirit, and things like that. How do you balance those other areas?
So I did a couple years ago, like I did a yoga teacher training, which was transformative, and I never had the intention to like go teach yoga classes at a yoga studio, but that really helped me. I think I didn't realize like how revved up my nervous system had been for so long, and that helped me just like bring it all down. Like I love yoga nidra, and like particularly at times like when I've been really sick or really tired, like that's just a transformative practice. So I do that as well, like breath work, energy work, like love massage, like all these things. So I try to, get outside. I'm solar powered. Like my old coach told me that. She's like, yeah, you just like literally need to like go outside, Rhonda, and you'll be okay. I was like, that's really true. So that's a big piece of it too.
I can relate to that. If I don't get sun, like my mood just plummets. Like I don't even need that much sun. I just need a little bit, and it's just like it's such a mood boost.
It is.
Like
Yeah.
I am such a big proponent of getting outside and just breathing. Just sit there and just breathe, and like it's gonna improve your day, it's gonna improve your mood. And everybody's like, oh, there's no way it's gonna do that. And I'm like, just try it, you'll never know.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, there's like a lot of science behind it. They say like
Yeah.
if you get out within like an hour of waking up, and I'm without glasses or sunscreen, so I'm like wandering around the yard in my pajamas, like blind, can't see anything. But that it's like affects your hormones and like all this stuff. So there's like so cool.
Wait, hang on. So they tell you to go without glasses too?
Mm-hmm. Ideally,
Oh my
like
gosh.
so that you're getting
Glasses
like all of
block
the sun rays.
the sun. Yeah.
Interesting.
And it can be just like
Yeah.
20 minutes, I guess, or even 10 minutes, like first thing in the morning, like within an hour of waking up. They say that like resets your hormones and like just helps you feel better and stuff. And I started doing that. And like, I feel like it really works for like what the time investment is, and like wandering around with like a cup of tea or whatever in the yard.
I will need a playpen outside because without my glasses, I am blind.
Yeah.
Like I will need a safe, secure area
You know
because
that big one
like
that you used to put your son in?
yeah, yeah. If I can just turn that into my playpen because
Yeah.
oh my gosh, being outside without my glasses makes me nervous. Like I can walk from my bed to the bathroom at nighttime without my glasses, and that's about as brave as I get.
Just be careful out there.
Yeah. Oh, that's gonna be
Don't run
fun. My
into a
husband.
horse.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. I'm just gonna be like, is that a horse or a cow or a bear or like
Maybe just bring it with you and like sit down for a second, like soak the sun in.
yeah. I need an adult to supervise me right now. Someone's coming. Oh, that's funny. I actually might task that to one of my children. I feel like they would probably get a kick out of being like, okay, it's your time to supervise mom now.
You're gonna go take mom on her daily walk around the yard.
This is going to be a precursor for when I'm old, so just let's practice now.
They'll be well trained.
Make sure she doesn't fall in any holes. No horses, no cows. At least you don't have chickens anymore.
I know, right? Yeah, oh my goodness. Um, no, I personally would love to get back into yoga. It was something I did. I used to do jujitsu and mixed martial arts, and like someone in the program was like, okay, all of these guys who are very physically active and very like aggressive, go do yoga. And they're like, no, there's no way I'm gonna do yoga. Like I'm this macho man. And he's like, no, okay, now we're all going to go do yoga. And so it completely transformed like our gym because these guys started to connect with their bodies and they had more balance, they had more understanding of how their body moved, and it trickled into their entire martial arts with adding that one piece into it.
That's awesome. How cool.
Yeah, and that's when I started getting into it, but I haven't done it since then.
I love I like some forms of Kundalini are really intense, but I do Kundalini with a woman named Chris Batzner, and she does it in the most gentle way. So it takes like 10 minutes a day. It's not a huge time commitment, but it is transformative for like the amount of time that it takes. It's like I'm all about that too. You know what I mean? Especially when things get really busy and you just like don't have like a half hour or an hour to go do like a full practice.
Tell us what the difference of that is versus regular yoga.
So Kundalini, and I'm like no expert in it, but Kundalini is like essentially about like channeling the energy that's in your spine, like through your body. And for me, when I started doing it, it was like the next day I felt like instantly better, instantly creative, just like so much happier. Like people around me were like, oh my gosh, like you're smiling all the time. Like what's going on? I was like, well, I'm doing this. And I don't know, it's been like a transformative practice for me. And again, like one as a pretty busy person that, I can give 10 minutes to that and it really makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think that is something that, like, you're right, still finding those small moments to do these practices that affect everything else in your life. But then, just accepting that some days it's okay to sit and do this for an hour. It's okay to, focus on this. It's not just sitting on a mat and taking a nap. It is doing work to restore your body, to ground, and to find yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Even like breath work I do throughout the day as I'm working too. So one of the things I started doing was like I would get so overwhelmed because I'd have like a million tabs open and like all this stuff going on. And so what I started to do was like I pulled up one task that I was going to work on. I would like go outside and just like pick a few weeds or like wander around the yard for like 5 minutes and just do like some different breathing exercises that were just short, like come back and that one task is ready to go. And that helped me like boost my productivity and just like peace of mind so much.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to like that getting used to, it not looking pretty because you're stepping away from the work, right? So that's the unpretty feeling is like I want to be productive, and to be productive I have to step away for a minute. That doesn't make sense in our heads, but I just want to sit here and be at the computer all day long. That feels productive. When in reality, creating that space where you do go out and you do have those moments, it does clear things up to where when you come back, it you can focus so much more on the task at hand.
Yeah. If you would have told me that advice like 10 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, there's no way I can ever do that. But it's really like transformed my work and made it, because sometimes I'll have like really great ideas about what I'm about to work on, just from like wandering around the yard, like outside, or like go to feed my ducks, or like just some little thing. It doesn't have to be time intensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's so funny, like for authors, I don't know if you've experienced this too. Some of my best ideas have come when I'm laying down and fixing to get ready for bed, and I'm just like laying there and kind of decompressing. It's like, that's a great idea. And then I have to put it on
Yeah.
my phone and make a note of it really quick.
Absolutely. I totally believe in like that space, like right before and after sleep is like a creative gateway. So like I tend to try to write like first thing in the morning for that reason, because it is like so much stuff is like bubbling up from our whatever subconscious mind or
Yeah.
deep within us.
So it's actually funny you say that because like the idea for my book that I want to write came to me as we were laying down. And actually, as we're going to bed at night, my husband will sit there with me and we will bounce ideas and he won't let it die. He will not let me just like think about a book and then just like let the idea die. He's like, no, what do you need to accomplish this? Like, what are the steps? What's gonna happen? Like, how do they get from point A to point B? Like, how are they gonna accomplish that? And like, he's feeding me these ideas, and it's like I just pull up my phone and pull up my notes and just start typing. And it's
I love
so
that.
great, and it always happens either right when we first wake up or right before we go to sleep. So it's so interesting that you mentioned that, because like, yeah, that's the best time that I do my work.
How cool. And how cool that you have like such a supportive partner that can help you like walk through that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, he is absolutely fantastic. And I mean, he doesn't like to write, but I think he is a very talented writer. But he went to a prep school, so they taught him how to write from a very young age, and he's really good at it. And he's really good at the process, and so having him by my side, I think, is really going to help me, and having all y'all by my side too. But it's so funny though, because like if you ask him, he's like, no, I hate writing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, you hate it.
I do think that there's like, I think that there, my husband's similar, and the creativity from them, it's like they want to transfer into other things. I think that
Yeah.
writing just feels too stationary for them. Like they're
Yeah.
so, if they could write while doing stuff and moving their body, I feel like that would be a better option for them.
Probably, yeah.
That is so true. I have clients like that too, that literally will just like record voice notes of what they're thinking and then use like a tool like Otter AI to transcribe it. And sometimes that can like help get over that gap.
That's
Actually
smart.
found out there's like a new Google tool that you can like upload your notes into, and it will like feed it back to you in a podcast form.
That's awesome.
I cannot for the life of me remember what this is called, and but I found a couple different like examples of it, and Shay's showed me, and it's really cool. And they're using AI to do this. So like, and AI is not all bad. Like obviously, it has its drawbacks, but like for this like specific thing, it's really great because you're able. A lot of people can't, like we talked about earlier, you need that community, you need that sense of somebody else. So yeah, you can just upload it in this program and they will take your notes and whatever you uploaded it and put it back to you in podcast form so that you can learn easier. And I was like, where was that when I was in college?
Right? Yeah.
Right.
So many new tools. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think using the tools that are available to you in the capacity of like, as long as it's not taking work from other people, that sort of thing, obviously. But like there are AI things that have limits and they can't go into other stuff, and that is the kind of stuff I support, because like you said, some people don't have that community, some people don't have that support, but having those things that can assist you, that's huge.
Absolutely. Another tool that I have found just while we're talking about tech tools, I
Yes,
use
please.
naturalreaders.com. It's like a screen reading tool. So like if I have a draft that I'm working on or I need to submit something to a client, I run it through that and like hear someone else read it to me in a different voice. And it helps me catch like so many typos, like just places where it like doesn't sound conversational or whatever. So that's like another one
Yeah,
that's like sped up my writing
that's
like a ton.
That is
super cool. I
awesome.
didn't even know that existed either.
It's
Yeah,
free. I mean, there's a paid version too, but like the free version's fine.
that is, and so this is something that I have realized, because I will read drafts to my husband, and as I'm like, when I'm typing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the most genius thing ever. And then when I read it to him, I'm like, no, that's not why is this not as magnificent as whenever I was typing it?
That's like the writer's work right there.
Yeah. So now I can run it through this before I read it to him, and then when I read it to him, it'll sound so much better.
Yeah, it's good. It'll like mispronounce like typos and stuff like that to help you catch them, or you can just be like, oh, the dialogue's like
Perfect.
sounds like so weird here.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great tool. And that's huge. And another piece to like this whole thing that we're trying to do is like find the tools that work for you and use the systems that work for you. Don't force another system just because, the most well-known author recommends it or whatever. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But take the pieces that do and kind of hodgepodge your own chimera of work ethics and processes.
I think people are looking for that quick book. Like, and it's just not going to happen for most people. And that's just the reality of it. But, like for instance, when I was thinking about writing my book, I was like, I just want something that I can just write everything down and not get it lost. And I found World Anvil, which was fantastic because I can connect to everybody and create my own world. And it's all on a website. And that's
Oh,
fantastic. And it's actually for D&D campaigns.
interesting. So
Yeah,
smart.
it's called World Anvil. So you can create entire D&D campaigns, but they actually have a section on there specifically for authors and for writing your books, because like my biggest flaw is I'm going to create connections and then lose them. And that's not something that I want to translate into my book. So I thought that was pretty cool, but I don't think there really is a one size fits all for book writing. And I think that a lot of people come into it wanting that. And, you go on Etsy and you search for it, and everybody has all these book building things, and it may not work for you. But I just think there's so many free resources you should try first before you jump into these paid ones.
Yeah, I think it's like getting really clear on how you like to learn and how you like to work, that can then help you figure out like what's the tool then that's going to support me in that or the program or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and that kind of circles back into the first thing that we talked about was getting clear on your goals, getting clear on what it is that you want. Why do you want this? That's another thing too, is like Bree said, some people just want to write a book quickly and get it out there. It's like, but why? What's your reason for that? Is it because you have a story you want to tell, or is it because you would like to maybe get famous in a quick way, or and also if that's the case, be prepared for some disappointment, because that typically doesn't happen. So just getting clear on your why is huge. But I think a lot of us shy away from asking ourselves those questions, and that's curious too, is like, is it because we're afraid of the answer, or is it because if we find the why, then we can achieve it so much more, and we're afraid of that success?
I think people are scared. They're scared of the why. Like, if you answer the why, what comes after the why? And I think that's what scares people. It's the fear of the unknown that you kind of have to let go of, and just, you have to trust it. Life is going to take you where life is going to take you. It's like we said at the beginning. We've all said it. Things happen for a reason. Like, one of my favorite quotes is, "It is what it is," because it is. You can't change it. It simply is what it is, and it's going to happen. And you have to let it happen, and you have to take those punches, and it's how you react to it and how you grow from it that's going to lead to that change, and it's going to lead to the positiveness. Like what happened to Rhonda. You could have something super negative happen to you, and it's how you take it and what you do with it, and that's going to decide your future.
Yeah. I think partly in my mind that people are just like so busy, right? And they're just like running, that like it sounds good to think about the why, but just like allowing themselves the time that and the reflection that it takes to really do that can be a challenge. And then also, like, for some people, they think like once I've come up with that why, then it's like so unachievable that I can't do it, and so I don't want to like set myself up for disappointment. But what I say all the time is, like, once you get clear on that why and you start following like the things that bring you joy or bring you, make you curious, those are like little breadcrumbs, and like they don't have to make sense. And like your family, like your friends, like everyone might be rolling their eyes at you and thinking you're like bananas the whole time. But like just go and keep doing those things that like move in that direction, even if you don't really know where it's going to go or where it's going to lead. And that's how we step into our heart's calling, right? It's not about like leaping before you see the net or, doing like really dramatic things. It's like these itty bitty actions where you're like, oh, like I'm curious about that, or I'd like to try that, or whatever.
Yes, yes. And like you said, trying things that you might not have before, because not only does it show you what you like and what you're interested in, it also shows you what you don't like or what you might not want to pursue. And doing it in small breadcrumb trails means that you're not taking the leap, the big giant leap, and then you're like, this isn't for me.
Yeah.
But now you're free falling. So do you have any advice for our listeners on how to connect with their passion and just kind of, get clear on what it is that they're wanting to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like, some of like getting clear on what you want, like thinking about like what's really important to you and trying to make time for those makes sense. Another thing that was transformative to me, which is from Kate Northrup's book Do Less, is you basically like chart how you're feeling every day. So like that could be like in a planner, or not a planner, but like on a calendar, or maybe like on your Google Calendar, where you just add like a sentence or two, like I was tired, I was joyful, I was like whatever it was. And then like zoom out to see those over time, and to see like where, like, am I in the months, am I like consistently feeling like I'm just like out of control emotionally, or just like super productive. And then try to craft your calendar to the extent that you can to like lean into those times. So like literally what I do, I always like feel really crappy during the third quarter moon. And so like I block my calendar, not that I'm not going to still like work and have meetings then, but it's just like reminds me like, hey Rhonda, like don't schedule a dentist appointment then, or like plan to like go grocery shopping that day. It's like, how can I just like make this like 10 degrees easier on myself? Or doing the same thing where it's like, if I know I'm just like on fire with ideas with certain times of the month or whatever, then trying to like lock in like a little more writing time or, different things that would support those efforts. And in that, doing that, like kind of leaning into like what your personal seasons are, to be gentle with yourself, to not make them wrong, and to like help you be, more productive.
So I'm curious on I love that. But how did you make the correlation to that certain time during the month you're like blocking this out because this is not a good time of month for me? Was it just the tracking of it for so long that you're like, this is a pattern?
Yeah, so I did it on like a paper planner. And then I, would just like write in at the end of every day, like more or less how I felt that day. And then after I had done that for like 2 or 3 months, I like looked and I tried to see like, is there any like pattern to this that I can discern? And, after 3 months of sort of like collecting that data, and again, you're like collecting it, not making it wrong, like you're just observing, then you might be, able to like take some action from there.
It's actually interesting. Whenever I just recently switched to iPhone, and iPhone has a mindfulness app now, and it will remind me every single day. I actually have it remind me twice a day, and it tracks my mood.
Mm-hmm.
Go
So
in,
cool.
and it will show you, and it will actually pull out patterns for you and be like,
That's
hey,
awesome.
during this time of the month, you're always feeling a little anxious, or you're always feeling a little bit depressed. And so that's kind of cool that like you're talking about that, because like I've always wondered, I was like, like, does it really matter? But yeah, I guess it really does matter. Like it can really matter. And being in tune with your body. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I never, like I've seen it and like I track it, but like I didn't think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I never did either till I read that book. And then when I did it and actually started like making adjustments to my calendar,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this like just makes my life so much easier. And like, just what a gift I can give myself to not like schedule extra stuff on those times when I know I'm going to be like a little shaky.
Yeah. No, and I think sometimes it's like we writing down just exactly how it is. We want to embellish on it, right? We want to explain why we feel that way. We want to give a reason for our bad behavior or our crappy mood or whatever. But I love that you said just write it as it is. Just from an observer perspective, don't give any meaning to it. Don't add any more to it, because then you can see the patterns. Because if you add all the other stuff, it's like, but there could be something underneath that. There could be something that you're digging or you're adding all this fluff to, but it could just be this baseline thing.
Yeah. And in the mindfulness app actually on iPhone doesn't even give you a chance to. It asks you how you're feeling right now, how you've been feeling, or how you've been feeling all day. It asks like, it has sections. So it's like, can't talk. It could be like, oh, how are you feeling? So I could be like anxious, and it can be like, so what's making you feel anxious? And it'd be like community, family, significant other, money, whatever it is. And I think on the phone it does have a section for you to add like one sentence if you want to, but you don't have to. But then it's simply just logging that you feel anxious because of XYZ. And I mean, just having that to look back on, so like, hey, how often have I been anxious this month? Like, let's say you're on medication for your anxiety. Is my anxiety medication like actually working with me? And just being able to look at that. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's just about like not making it wrong, right? So we're not like trying to diagnose it, we're not trying to fix it as much as just like observing what is, and then thinking, okay, what's like an aligned step that I might take, and see how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And that's something that I think can transfer into a lot of different areas in our life, is just not making it wrong. Like it's okay to be a little crabby. It's okay to, have a moment where you just want to gorge yourself on chips. It's fine. Just check it. Where's that coming from? Why are you needing that? So when the listeners listen to this episode, your book will have already been published for a couple of weeks. And so today is October 7th. And just know that today is the day that this amazing book has been released. The Chapel of Small Breaths. That's correct, right?
Breath singular.
Yeah, yeah. And so where can they go to find it? How can they get excited about it? And where can they follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's available at major booksellers. I'm selling like signed copies on my website. So that's there. My website or my Substack is called Earth and Jar Stars on Substack. And then I'm by my name on social media, and my website for my business is rhondalinn.com.
Awesome. I am so excited about this episode. You are one of our first like energy people, and like I can feel it. I can totally feel the energy, and I love that because people don't realize how this like give and take of energy it can be. And so just having someone else who's like, "Oh yeah, I'm also aware of energy." It's like this is great conversation.
Oh, it was such a pleasure to chat with you both. What kind hosts, and
Yeah.
just love your Discord community and all of the work that you're doing in your Facebook group. So thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Thank you
This
for
is a
being
really
here.
great interview.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of L3. Don't forget to like shallow. Don't forget to like and shallow our page and follow our page and share this with all of your bookish friends. See you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this episode of Lemon's Listening Library. Remember, every story has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep listening.